Hey guys, I'm Hellhound, and welcome to another episode of my review show. Last video I did was with my good friend Dark Wolf, where we talked about the 1980 John Carpenter masterpiece, The Fog. And that became the third episode of our little show, currently titled Video Store Horror Section. I don't know if we're going to keep that title, though. It's kind of long, so I might just end up calling it Hellhound and Dark Wolf Show. The last solo video I did, I reviewed Wes Craven's Shocker. And I've been kind of on a Wes Craven kick lately, and so I'm watching some of his, other work. I watched Deadly Blessing and Deadly Friend and a few others, and then I revisited a movie that I had always had kind of mixed feelings about. I always thought it was a good movie, but the tone was all over the place, and I wasn't sure what type of reaction from the audience he was trying to get across. This movie, of course, is Wes Craven's People Under the Stairs from 1991, not to be confused with the hip-hop group of the same name. Though weirdly enough, this movie does have a lot of hip-hop culture in it, and songs, and kind of a vibe, hip-hop vibe here and there in certain parts. But yeah, it's a good movie. I always liked it, let's start with the premise. Okay, basically it's a young black boy named Fool. His real name is Poindexter, but he goes by Fool for some reason. It's never fully explained. Not really sure why they call him that. I think Brandon Adams is the actor's name, I believe. And he's forced to... his mom's dying of cancer, and his family's just dirt poor. They're living in a crappy apartment. The landlords are just screwing everybody. They own all these properties. They're screwing everybody by raising the rent constantly and kicking people out, evicting all their tenants, and then tearing the places down to build office buildings. And they're just terrible, terrible landlords. And so, Fool, his mom's dying. His family's about to lose their place and be homeless yet again. They're just struggling. You really feel bad for these people. They're just, poverty stricken, and it's just awful. And so, Fool teams up with a guy named Leroy, played by Ving Rhames. I think in one of his earlier roles, if I'm not mistaken. It was before, Pulp Fiction made him who he is today. That was his big break, I guess. And also another guy named Spencer, a white man. They're thieves. They break into liquor stores. They steal from people. They rob people. So, you don't really sympathize with these people, but Fool's kind of duped into working with him. He's kind of reluctant. He knows it's wrong, but he's desperate. He wants to save his mom. He doesn't want to lose their house. All this stuff. So he teams up with them, and they decide to rob the landlords, who live in a really big, nice, very elaborate house with a lot of secret rooms, and just it's almost robotic. They you can push buttons and it automatically shuts down all the doors. There's bars in the windows. Basically, if you're in the house, there's almost no escape. It's hard to get out. And so he goes with those two, and they become trapped in the house. And pretty soon, Leroy and Spencer are both killed. And this is all after he Fool posed as a Boy Scout trying to sell cookies, and that failed. But and so they say, we're going in. They go. And pretty soon, Fool becomes trapped in the house, and he sees that the landlords are actually a psychotic brother and sister team, played by Everett McGill and Wendy Roby, who, they're incestuous, they abuse children. It becomes clear that they've kidnapped a bunch of people's children and just held them captive. And, they have impossible standards. They never let them out of the house. They have all these crazy rules. They punish them. They beat them frequently. And there's even kids living in the, locked up in the basement and other parts of the house, in the walls. The people under the stairs, essentially. And they've had their tongues cut out. They've had other body parts cut out. They've just been tormented, tortured, abused. And they're just held captive. And it's just awful. And so, Fool is, they're... The brother and sister, they're never referred to by name. I think at one point she calls him Elrod or Eldor or something. She calls him by some name, but they're just called man and woman or daddy and mommy throughout the movie. And it becomes apparent that they're just nuts. They have a dog that they sick on all the trespassers. They've just killed so many people. Other thieves who break in. maintenance workers, salesmen, just, they're just, and they've been getting away with it for years, and they're so greedy, and they're so psychotic. They're also religious nutcases as well. They try to justify their actions by saying they're working for God, and that's a type of person I just despise. I've encountered people like this before in my lifetime, and they're just like the sickest people that you can think of. I cannot stand people who use religion as excuse to perform evil. They think that their actions are righteous and serving God. And there's a little bit of hint of that in these characters too. And they're just despicable, horrible, disgusting people. And Fool tries to escape the house by also trying to rescue their daughter, who's Alice, who is also being basically held captive, but she's not being as punished as bad as the others, who I think are mostly boys, if not all boys. And he's also assisted by another one of the captives in the basement escapes and has been living in the walls and using all the crazy hidden passages and secret hidden rooms in the house. His name's Roach, by the way, and he sadly dies early on too. Sorry if I'm spoiling things, but it's really early on, and I have to kind of talk about, in order to talk about the movie, I have to mention some of the the horrible events that take place in order to kind of give you a picture of what I'm going towards, about the all over the place tone, which I'll get to in a minute. Fool is just trying to escape the house now and save Alice as well as the people under the stairs who have been forced into cannibalism. They feed Fool's two accomplices to these people, and you see their bloody, chewed up bodies several times. Even the dog eats a hand and then coughs up our Spencer's ring. It's really it's really disturbing when you think about it. And that's just it. That's the thing about this movie I can't wrap my mind around. It was hard for me for years to formulate an opinion on it. The thing is, the subject matter is so disturbing and dark, and just a very unnerving and unsettling premise. And there are some genuinely shocking scenes in the movie, but most of it feels like a comedy. That's my issue with this movie. And now it doesn't really bother me. It still makes me enjoy it. I love the comedic scenes. And that's, and it doesn't take away from the movie, but it just makes me wonder, was Wes Craven going for kind of a horror comedy, kind of a spoof on this type of thing, or was he actually trying to create a serious, traumatic, tension-filled, suspenseful horror story? It was based on a true story that he had read about, reportedly. He mentioned he read about thieves breaking into a house, and it turned out that the people, the owners there, the residents, had been locked up their children in a room and never let them leave the house. And so that's a very disturbing theme. But as soon as Fool gets into the house, he's chased around by Everett McGill and Wendy Roby, the man and woman, daddy and mommy, the incestuous, crazy, psychotic, child-abusing duo who just do these horrible things, but they're hilarious. Everett McGill is just funny in this movie. The only other horror movie I can think of that he was in was Silver Bullet. He played the Reverend, the preacher who was actually the werewolf. And I would love to see him in more horror movies. He's like a campy, buffoonish clown in this movie. It's absolutely hilarious. When he first comes in dressed up in the Gimp outfit, he dresses as a Gimp in a costume at some point in this movie. I just lost it. And the delivery of all his lines, I love when... It's hilarious. I love when he says, "Can't see shit." I love his delivery of that line when he's in the chimney. And then when they talk about cutting off body parts, it's so disturbing, but the way within the context of the movie, the way they portray it is mostly funny. She said, Wendy Roby, the mommy character, says, "We're not going to cut off his ears, we're going to cut off someone else." And he's just in the background, he's like, "His balls!" And I just love, it's just... Everett McGill is hilarious in this movie. And at one point he stabs the wall, he sees blood, and he thinks that he stabbed Fool or Alice or, one of the escaping kids. And he's like, I got him. He starts dancing around. It's like, is this supposed to be taken seriously? I mean, are you supposed to be shocked by these people? Because what they do is certainly shocking. What they have done is just terrible. All these horrible things. They're like some of the worst villains I can think of when you, on paper, when you look at it, out of context, and they've kidnapped all these children, they cut their tongues out, they burn their bodies, they're constantly saying "burn in hell." It's a line that's repeated throughout the movie. they feed dead bodies to these captives they have in the basement that have never seen light. They just give them flashlights and human flesh, and that's about it. That's basically it. They've all grown really long hair and long nails, and they're pale, and their eyes are like they're probably blind too. They just look like monsters. They look like mutant creatures. They kind of look like the Chud creatures, only maybe not that bad, but a little more realistic maybe. It's such a dark subject matter. It starts off, and Fool and like his friends, like some of his family and like Leroy, they're kind of funny. Like Fool, the way he delivers his lines, he never acts like he's in real danger, and he doesn't really take a lot of it seriously. But I think he's still a good actor. I think the kids usually annoy me in horror movies, but he was believable. He did come across as very genuine and kind of funny in certain scenes. I love his chemistry with Alice and Roach, poor Roach. And Roach is just funny, too. He's always laughing and stuff. And you really, really rooted for Fool, too. And you really rooted for these creatures to escape and stuff. But I can't help but love the villains. I mean, I feel terrible saying that. They're horrible people. What they've done is just unspeakably atrocious, but they're hilarious. And as soon as Fool gets trapped in the house and Everett McGill is stalking with a shotgun in his gimp costume, it becomes a Tom and Jerry cartoon. I'm serious. And that's not really my main issue, but it's what confuses me about this movie. Is it supposed to be a straight-up shocking, suspenseful horror film with dark subject matter that could really happen in real life? Is it supposed to be a horror comedy that makes you laugh? Or is it supposed to be like a weird hip-hop culture type early 90s trendy movie? Like what was Wes Craven going for here? He could have definitely created one of the most shocking movies of all time, and that's my main issue. It had potential to be, ooh, look at that skull, ooh, so scary, ooh, look at that scary skull. But it had potential to be like a really terrifying, brutal, shocking movie that's had people like, oh my gosh, like it could have really turned some heads. It could have really like made people. I know it's based on a true story. It's a very It's a very real thing that could happen in real life, and there's nothing funny about it whatsoever. But when I watch this movie, I see Everett McGill. He accidentally stabs his dog. He says, "Oh shit!" And like everything he says is funny. He dances and kind of sings his lines. He shoots. He fires a shotgun everywhere. He's like, "Gotcha!" It's like, I don't know if it was unintentionally fun. I don't know if they were trying to be funny, but him and even Wendy Roby is really funny when she shouts and screams and that serious look on her face. It's really disturbing when she throws Alice into a steaming bath that's just, you can tell it's scalding hot, and she's forcing her to scrub herself. She's like, "You dirty little whore," It's just horrible stuff, but now Wes Craven is known for having a lot of levity in his movies and comic relief. And I really appreciate that, but this could have really been a very dark, traumatic movie. It could have been like another Texas Chainsaw Massacre or The Exorcist, only this one, just like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, it could really happen. And it's a very, very real and very disturbing premise, a thing that, unfortunately happens in real life all the time. Maybe not to this extent, but, children are kidnapped, children are abused, even by their own biological parents. There's incestuous siblings who do horrible things. I'm sure they're just the cannibalism. There's so many real life horrors mixed into one shocking package, but it becomes a freaking Three Stooges episode. Like, oh my god. He throws bricks at Everett McGill's character's head, Daddy's head, and hits him. He's like, it's just so funny. It's just I don't know. I'm a little confused about this movie still to this day. I like it. I really do. I think it's a very good movie, but at the same time, I feel like there was some wasted potential. And it could have been something truly memorable. This doesn't seem very popular as I thought it would be. There's other horror critics and reviewers that I'm fans of. I noticed haven't reviewed this movie, at least not yet. At least not at this time. And I was kind of surprised by that. I thought this would be one of the main ones that horror reviewers talked about. But I don't know. I guess not. Yeah, it just wow. I mean, it has great visuals, and there is some brutal scenes. There's some very gory, violent scenes, and I feel like you're watching the movie. It's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this just happened. That was shocking. It's like, I can't believe it. And then you see Everett McGill come out in his gimp costume, singing his lines, and having Wendy Roby's character say, get him! And it's just like, oh my god, it just makes me makes me forget all about the previous tension that I felt in the previous scene. You know, it's just like, oh my gosh. So yeah, wow. I recommend this movie. Honestly, I'm glad it has the comedy. It makes me want to watch it more. It makes it more entertaining. It could have definitely been a psychological study of these type of people like this that really do exist, religious nutcases that abuse children and think they're doing the right thing and in God's eyes from their twisted point of view and perspective. But wow, the tone is all over the place, and just, you know, the hip hop culture was just becoming popular in the early '90s. '91 especially is when it started to take off. You know, and there's a lot of that vibe in this movie as well. It was definitely marked like the end of the '80s era horror movies. You know, there's other movies that came out at this time, like Popcorn came out the same year, and it feels like an '80s movie. Hell, Night of the Demons 2 came out in '94. 3 years later, it feels like an '80s movie. There are still, you know, some remnants left from the wonderful '80s, which is in my opinion is the golden age of horror films. '70s too, as well, but those are a little more serious. The '80s was known for the more fun, amusing, cheesy horror, which is what I like. You know, that's just my personal preference. And like this kind of marked a new style of horror that, you know, took place in the '90s. But oh my gosh, is this movie hilarious? So yeah, what more can I say? I think I pretty much covered everything. Check it out. Everett McGill is just a delight to watch, and you know, I just hated these villains. They were horrible people. I despised them, but at the same time, they're a riot, and they just, oh my gosh, so you know, it's kind of hard to formulate an opinion on. Really, it's a hard thing to wrap my head around. Still to this day, I thought rewatching it, you know, as an adult, probably haven't seen it in years since I was like a teenager. I thought maybe that would make me say, "Oh, okay, so I understand now." But really, I don't know. I mean, I applaud Wes Craven. I'd say this is one of his better efforts. Not one of his best, not one of his very best. Like not a masterpiece, but it's definitely one of the better ones. It's definitely not one of the misses. You know, he's hit or miss. It's definitely not one that's to be considered a miss. Now, the previous movie I directed, Shocker, that one is a little more. That's an example of one that could possibly be labeled a miss. I like it personally, but I can definitely see why somebody wouldn't. Now, this movie, what's not to love? It's just, oh my gosh. I mean, I feel bad. I feel like an asshole for saying, you know, that I love watching these horrible people, but it just feels like a comedy routine most of the time. But you know, but again, I might have like over exaggerated the comedy. There are a lot of other intense scenes that kind of balance it out a little bit, But when you watch the movie, the main things you're going to remember is Everett McGill's performance and his, you know, delivery of his lines, and you know, and Fool saying "I'm gonna kick your ass," and you know, and stuff, and just the slang and the hip hop urban ghetto setting, and I really like the house too. It's a pretty cool location for a horror place. Some cool scenery and visuals there. But yeah, check out this. Oh god, there's that scary skull again. Ooh. Check this movie out. I dig it. I think you'll like it, and maybe you can formulate your own opinion on it. And if I missed something, if it was obvious that it was supposed to be a horror comedy, or you know, anything like that, you know, feel free to leave a comment in the comment section below and let me know what you think of the movie, or if there's something maybe I'm not grasping here. Yeah. Well, I'm Hellhound. Thank you for watching my show, and until next time. Tomorrow I'm going to go see X-Men Apocalypse with my buddy Shadow, same guy I went to see Captain America Civil War with, and I'm going to try to see if he'll appear in my video. I'm going to see all the superhero movies this year, and I'm going to give my first impressions on them in a video afterwards. I've already done so with Deadpool, Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice, and Captain America Civil War. And I'm going to likewise do the same thing with X-Men Apocalypse. I'm going to see if my buddy Shadow, who I'm seeing it with, will guest star on the show and with me and talk about it. If I can't get him to, oh well, but definitely expect a video about that tomorrow sometime. Looks really good. I'm excited to see it. So, well, yeah, well, that's my People Under the Stairs review. Until next time. Until tomorrow when I'll talk about X-Men Apocalypse. Alright, guys. See you later.